of that meeting. It looks to be one that's quite fiery, it seems, because as you heard from the CFO, they seem to be quite defiant that a breakup doesn't really open up or restore any kind of value. How big of an uphill battle is this going to be for you and the people that you represent?
Well, firstly, I welcome they start up the dialogue, at least because we walk to the Mr. Tucker and as well as some CE, Mr. Dean, Mr. Noel Queen as well, 2 years ago regarding the promised dividend that they cancelled. So this is really defeat the shareholders in the general public and make them feel very upset. So again, if they can reconsider to move back the headquarters back to Hong Kong and carving out the major Asian business sectors and then make the listing in Hong Kong, that will be helpful to settle down all the
but they're restoring dividends, and they're also targeting returns of 12% from next year onwards, which is probably the highest probability that we've seen from HSBC in a decade or so. Does that change anything for you guys at all?
Well, that means we are glad that they at least repay a part of our demand, but not at all. Because remember last 2 years ago that dividend, that promised dividend is talking about 43.5 billion US. It's a lot of money, about 338 Hong Kong dollars. 33.8 billion dollars. Then how are they going to settle? Because this amount is in the account of HSBC. So will they consider to pay back the dividend to our minority shareholders? So that's why Ping An faced the same, because they hold the major stocks, shares of around 8%, which is influential to call the EGM. So next, if the directors of the board didn't, upset the rest of the minority shareholders, talking about we are 40% the customer base in Hong Kong and Asia. We're talking about. So if they don't follow, or respect the minorities, I think we will definitely support Ping An to call EGM. So I think that will the same thing happen. So I think at least have a good dialogue yesterday that CFO reply our demand, which is talking about the major profitable business generate from Asia and Hong Kong and our China. So that's why we also hope that they do the right things and act the best interest for our shareholders.
Right. And what do you think they'll tell you today?
Well, we will do our best and attend the meeting. We have couple hundreds minority shareholders will attend. Okay. Probably in the Kowloon Bay Hall will accommodate thousands shareholders. So I believe that we will certainly speak out on behalf of our minorities.
So my other question is, one of the things that the CFO mentioned yesterday, that they're obviously running scenarios, and at this point he says they don't see any value so far. Part of it, let's say at some point in the future they do spin off and they do list, of course, the Asian business, that might come with some costs at the front end. They might incur some one-off transaction costs. If that's the case, and say they put off any future dividends temporarily because of those costs, would you still be in favor of splitting up Ping An?
I think so. Because
but you don't get a dividend, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yes, well, at least we are glad that they resume the paying back the dividend regularly, because most of our minorities are relying on their daily expenses and medical, especially during the pandemic. So this is really ridiculous that they cut off those promised dividend. But talking back to in the coming future, if they resume or consider to carving out the Asian business, even by years and years, we will still accept because, of course, they need to face the challenges and face the difficulties because they bought some debt to run. So for whatever regulation, it will need to be solved. And in fact, last time, the Bank of England decision forced HSBC to cancel the dividend. That was a very wrong message to the world and to the minority shareholders. So I think that is the hard memories that we need to remember.
You were also advocating for someone from Ping An to be a board member of HSBC. There were some officials that said there might be a conflict of interest here because these two entities compete so much in different facets of the business. Why do you think having a board member, a Ping An board member, would be a good possibility?
Well, first of all, they hold a majority shares, nearly 9%. They will, in a way, they will protect if they can get back or have some voting right in the board. Firstly, they have their own interests, and in a way to protect our minority shareholders' interests. That's first thing. Second is if they get into, because Ping An will have a strategy effect, a synergy effect, I would say, because they are strong in Asia and China and as well as Hong Kong. So the potential market in Asia, they can also help, or as a synergy effect, to have both win-win situation to the shareholders. So I don't think it's a conflict. In fact, the Greater Bay Area is so large, and the wealth management or the industrial trade market are so large. So I think they can work in a both way. In fact, the headquarters in UK in London is a bit away from the major majority sales or profit where they generated. So that's why another reason why we said we would urge Mr. Noble Queen, they should come back to Hong Kong because that's what the name is. The HSBC stands for Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank.